Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure. All right, so maybe not the next adventure, but definitely have new tread. So I've joined your club, Tina. I am now an orphan.
At least you have siblings.
That's true. I do have siblings. Yeah, so that was the sad reality that happened a week ago today as we're recording. So, yeah, and this is going to air on Friday. That's the 1 year from the date that my dad died, too. So it's all kind of wrapped up in the same week.
Wow.
Well, it's life, right?
Well, they do have that saying. My neighbor always reminds me because his wife died and he was waiting to die that first year because usually the next spouse dies within a year.
Right.
And as you just said that, wow, couldn't be more true.
Well, and it's I thought it would happen faster for my mother, but, she wasn't, she was in memory care and has Alzheimer's. And we didn't tell her because my dad asked us not to tell her that he had died because it would cause her that anguish each time because she wouldn't remember it. It's short-term memory. She's not going to remember the stuff just now.
You know
So,
what I wonder though? He went to visit her. And I think that the body retains some knowledge in a different kind of way. And I bet you she felt him not coming anymore. I
yeah, it's
bet you.
interesting because the first week or two she asked, about Len, but she wasn't like asking, where is he? Why hasn't he shown up? Which she used to do when she was early on. My mom's had this. She's had memory issues for more than 10 years. So, um, but then she stopped asking and she went farther back in her memory. It's an interesting thing. Not everyone has this linear progression with Alzheimer's, but I'm hearing a bird. How cute. But she started going farther and farther back in our memory. In fact, last month, the beginning of May, I went down to Arizona and visited her, and she recognized me, but I mean, this is like for the first time. So my mom's always known who I was. She recognized me, but wasn't sure. I said, "Hi, Mom, it's Sue," and so she started talking to me like I could tell it was a college friend because she had a friend named Sue Swain, and
Oh,
and she thought I was her, and my sister was there, and she thought we were her college friends. So she was going farther and farther back to the point where she didn't have those kids anymore, but she knew that she knew us, and
yeah.
I mean that's kind of a cool thing to just keep going farther back because you've got less memories to, you know, less losses, the loss of your children and your spouse from her perspective. Kind of interesting.
What I thought was interesting in my mother's regression, instead of regression,
Right.
my mom ended up back being in the war in Norway with her
Oh,
mom, who
geez.
was in mental institutions, and her father dying of tuberculosis. And so my experience and my mother's was one of horror. And that's when I insisted at the memory care, give her anything to help her forget because this mental torture is terrible.
Yeah.
And that experience taught me, I always feared, what if you're dying in pain,
Mm-hmm.
physical pain? And my mom helped me realize there's also an emotional pain. And I
Mm-hmm.
honestly don't know what was worse,
Yeah.
or what could be worse. So
Yeah.
at least your mom wasn't in emotional pain.
That's horrible. And like here's the thing that I'm learning, and this is why we're talking today, is because this stuff shouldn't be taboo to talk about. We need to
No.
talk and we need to share and we need to share our experiences. If there's nothing else we know as people our age who are retired or getting older, is that we are dealing with our parents' issues, their care and their death and our friends' death and all this. It's reality, and if you've been privileged like me not to have experienced too much in your life regarding death, it's inevitable. It's going to happen, folks. So we're talking about it. But my point was, like every birth, is different. I mean, there's a lot of similarities
True.
about how things go with pregnancy and birth. Every birth is different, and likewise, every death is different. You don't know how it's going
So
to
true.
progress, but there are certain things that we know or think we know and understand around it. So, yeah.
When we started this conversation, you said, I've now joined your ranks of being like the orphan. And it's interesting that when it happened, I wasn't so concerned. But now that I'm 56, approaching 57, now it's starting to really affect me, or my awareness of it, that, wow, I'm really next in line. I've really come a lot into my mortality lately. Um, yeah, it's been interesting realizing that, yeah, though it's me and my kids are taking my place then. And I don't know, how are you feeling about that place?
Yeah, I wonder, it's interesting because I wonder how our parents saw us. Were we still kids? Were we still naive, immature, inexperienced? Or did they see us as, we're growing up, we're adults, and you're in your own life, you're doing your own thing? I tend to think my parents saw me, at least, or some of my siblings, the same way, that we were adults, we're entering our lives, we are becoming equipped to manage and handle things, and and yet I'm looking. See, I'm still, I think, young enough to think my daughter, oh my gosh, she's so young, and then I think, well, man, she's not. She is equipped and she is capable and managing things very well. And likewise, I think that, how the words that she shared with me with my mom dying, she's been very philosophical and heartfelt and very caring. So she's got it. It's she's that adult too, and I need to kind of embrace that, I think.
Yeah, I think I waffle. I think that my whole being knows that they're becoming adults, but my mind still wants to see them as young kids. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's a generational thing because when you're the boomer generation, you want your kid, and you come out of the war, you want your kids to be resilient and strong and be adult sooner than they need to be, even. And
Mm.
our generation, well, I am the tail end of the boomers, but um, our modern society is pushing more towards infantilizing children, I think, and not equipping them to
Yeah,
to hand
helicoptering them.
yes, to be out there in the world and doing things. And so when we do that, there is a shift in how we even perceive of our kids, and or help them or enable them or whatever it might be.
I think when when I first started teaching, I taught high school, and I had a Swedish colleague who taught German. So we would have lunch. And the greatest gift she gave me was, when you have kids someday, look at them as a gift, and they're on loan. And you get them for 18 years to help get them prepared to go out into the world. And that mindset has always been with me. So even though I want them to be young still, I'm very good at being promoting their independence. That, I have to say,
Right.
has been something strong, where I really have wanted them to pursue their things and not guilt them to come home and do the things because, I can't detach from them. So it's been this quiet holding place to support them, but kind of in a way grieving. I realized uh, that also is a grief. So it's not just the loss of our parents, but losing the role as a parent, where they don't call you very often like they used to,
Yeah.
and for every piece of advice, and it could go days. And it's a grieving process too.
Yeah, I worked really hard mindfully to empower my daughter, in my mind, empower my daughter and
Yeah, in my mind
encourage
too.
her, yeah, encourage her to be independent and all those things. And she was one of those kids that grew up kind of slowly. She's an old soul, but also grew up slowly. It took her time, and everyone's got their pace. And
Hmm.
she's now come into her own. She's managing tough stuff, and I'm really proud of that. So, but at the same time, you do wish mm, you could see her more often or talk
Yeah,
to her. But that's okay. Don't have to. No pressure.
right.
This brings us back to our conversation that we had last week with quantity versus quality. And this thing with my mom, well, her death came up kind of quickly, and yet, not unexpectedly, as she has battled four cancers, had massive numbers of chemo and radiation and surgeries, and then she had kidney failure and this Alzheimer's and diabetes and all these things, and she just keeps on ticking. And with and then my dad dying last year, I thought, okay, well, it's kind of inevitable, but what this quality versus quantity, you're looking at, I was describing how she's gone back in her memory to she's becoming younger and younger. She was incontinent. She really didn't eat a whole lot. She would have liked to have had Rice Krispie treats and Diet Pepsi up until the day, but there wasn't a steady stream or source of that. She's in a memory care unit. Uh, it the quality of her life was good in that she was safe and taken care of, but the quality of that life also obviously had massively diminished. And with my dad's dying, I was her healthcare power of attorney, so I defaulted back to the mom I knew before dementia and Alzheimer's, to our many conversations about what she wanted her life and her end of life to look like, to her writing that she wrote, her instructions about that as well. My dad didn't do that. He's the engineer, always trying to solve the Alzheimer's. It's like, Dad, you're not a
Yeah.
medical doctor, trying to do all these things to solve her kidney issues. She had to drink. She couldn't have Pepsi because that causes, soft drinks cause uh, Alzheimer's, according to this study that he read, and all these things. And I'm like, it would have been wonderful to have the Diet Pepsi she wanted, and stuff, and then not to go to the hospital and with dementia, be strapped down, left in a hallway, have all these things done to you, these tests to preserve you farther in your agony that you're living. You know, um, that was Dad's choice to do, but then when he was out of the picture, it was I felt my duty and my honor to honor my mother's wishes before all of that. So that's kind of what went down. So that quality versus quantity is what we were looking at. So
And
it
how did you and your siblings, did you see things from the same lens or?
that's another wonderful thing. We do. We maybe not completely the exact same lens, but um, yes, we all agreed on that. And
Nice.
we all were there. I mean, I have two sisters that live in Arizona nearby. My brother came from Wisconsin, and I came from California, and we were uh, we weren't all there in the room all the time together, but we were all there, and that in itself said a lot. No
Yeah, it
one,
does.
stopped try to interject themselves on the health care provided or whatever the medication being done, even though it was hard to see, even though it was not
Right.
pretty. And that takes strength and takes resilience. So I commend our family for sticking together and doing that. So yeah,
That's a
yeah,
good, because that's not often the case.
that's
So
yeah,
this is really great news, actually.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I kept commenting on that, is like, thank goodness we're all on the same page here because, um, I've heard nightmares from other friends and family.
Hmm.
So that's the thing, you know, a lot of what we're talking about, I was talking about this with my friend last night. Um, she was like, but how can someone like even the spouse go against your wishes that you've written down? And like if you have a DNR, how to do not resuscitate order, how do people
Write it.
override that? What gives them the right to do that? Well, sadly, in our society, people do, and
Hmm.
oftentimes DNRs are not honored at every level. From
Hmm.
the emergency services that come, or a home that they're in, or your own family, or in the hospital, they are not honored. And so, to honor that someone's express wishes, you've got to work really hard. And if you even know things about what's going on, the medical community and the care facilities, if you're an insider and know that stuff, you still have to work really hard to make that happen. And that's what I wanted to kind of um, to talk
Talk
about
about
today, to
today.
clear the air about, because as much as her caregivers were amazing and loved her and were caring and kind and gentle, and they were crying at her bedside. Um, and then other aspects didn't work to make this easier for my mother or for the staff for that matter, um, or the family. So, oh, tough stuff.
How are you doing now?
Well, it wasn't unexpected, and it's like it's a relief. It's like so many people will describe when their loved one dies, it's like a relief. And that sounds selfish, but I don't think so. It's because you're holding yourself together. You hold everything you can together for them, for yourself, for your family members, or the caregivers or whoever. And it's a relief when, especially, suffering stops. Like you were describing your mother's emotional suffering. We got a pill for that. Uh, you know, and then emotional and physical suffering, we have a pill for that. Although that doesn't always solve it
No.
at all by any means. And you're sitting there watching it, witnessing it, and you got to be strong enough. So there's a relief for yourself that I don't have to hold it in anymore, and there's a relief for them, not they don't have to suffer through those things. And the reality is, our lives are going to end. We're
Yeah.
all going to suffer some way, and why does the suffering have to be so much or so hard? Especially if there are mechanisms in place that can relieve that. You know.
I think since we're both having dealt with parent in memory care, um, it's, I think the hardest thing is seeing that that person is no longer there.
Yeah.
And yet the body may still be strong enough. And so everybody's keeping this body alive, but the person's gone.
Right.
And you're right. That's where it's a system. It's a life is a life. And who are we to decide when to end it? But on the other hand, when you know that that life is gone, like my mom's back at 7 years old and crying and screaming all day long. Like, ah, um, it's a hard ethical thing to walk. But I think what I want to say is just the time that this particular Alzheimer's dementia, it's such a long process.
Yeah.
It's such a long process.
Well, this is the other thing is people think that if you're not doing heroic measures, then you are taking a life. That is so contrary. It's not about taking a life, although we could have a great conversation about this later about the right to die and one choosing to do that. Um, and let's do that later. But the right to just live your life and let natural life cycle happen is another. you know, here you are, someone with all these underlying uh,
Conditions.
conditions. And then ultimately, what we found out was that she had this hard lump under her breast. And we think was probably a lymph node. The ultrasound, which they made us do,
Wow.
says it was a cyst. They don't know if it came from the kidney or wherever. So ultimately, on her death certificate, it's going to read a reoccurrence of breast cancer. So whether it was or not doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter. Here she was with this hard lump, and it was painful. It kind of came out of nowhere, and my sister found it. It's like, wow, okay, so we're going to send her to the hospital and they're going to do all these tests and then, oh, maybe find that too, because they're not going to, it's just so wrong to do all these medical interventions when someone is dying, you
When
know?
you're on the track.
And Alzheimer's and dementia, your brain is shrinking, it's dying. And, it doesn't mean you have to hasten it, but it doesn't mean you have to preserve it against
Prolong it.
reality. This is the cause of death, Strange. Our society is strange around medical stuff, around death and dying, around the normal life cycle of a human being. Yeah.
Something that just kind of stood out to me. I find it interesting that the staff didn't find it. Your sister found it. And I'm assuming your mom wasn't standing up taking showers by herself, so she was being bathed by someone, dressed by someone daily.
Yeah, well,
And
you can't
I find
see
it
it.
interesting that it was your sister who doesn't probably bathe her or dress her that found it.
Yeah. This I don't fault the staff that was bathing her, because you're going to have your gloves on, you're going to have your sponge or your washcloth, and you're
It
not going
may
to
be
feel
different
it.
people.
Right. You're
It may
not
be different people every day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're not going to feel it. What her pain came out of nowhere. And so, all of a sudden, and then this is weird with Alzheimer's people. Oh, it hurts. And then, like, Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And then, you know, oh, so
Wow,
you
right.
forget short-term memory. She doesn't remember, but if you moved, that was what
Wow.
caused the pain. So that came out of nowhere, that moving thing.
How old was your mom?
88.
And my mom was 82. And again, I think we're both on the same page. Like, who are you prolonging that life for? And is that life the life that that person would have chosen?
And
And
the
so,
answer is with my mother, as I know, it was no. So,
right.
yeah. Yeah. So, the other thing I wanted to just, comment on as we
Yeah.
kind of wrap up this episode is the and I'd love to do a whole podcast on this, is hospice. So many people in our country think that hospice is there to kill you or
No.
to make your death happen faster. And it is the farthest from the truth. The
Yeah.
philosophy of hospice is to give people, the patient as well as their family, comfort
Yeah.
and care. And the part of the problem in our society is that there are hospices for profit, and there are hospices that are nonprofit. And
Hmm.
as a consumer, we need to be really aware that nonprofits are the way
Had
to
no
go,
idea.
because they have no mission other than their mission, which is to provide comfort and care for their patients and family. The for profit, kind of like the ambulance chaser lawyers, are waiting in the hospitals to provide services, to offer services. And those services, include, the hospital bed, the medications, all the stuff, and it's not the same thing. I'm not dissing the workers that are working in hospice, but when you've got an organization that is helping with comfort and care to profit from that, there's something wrong
It's going to
there.
look different.
Yeah.
It's going to feel different.
So I think a lot of the bad rep that people have got, that hospice has got, is because there are some less than reputable groups out there doing that kind of, quote, care. Our experience, thankfully, we'd chosen hospice that you look at, you see the reviews. They are a nonprofit. They were amazing. They really did a nice job helping us with support with my dad, which was less because, in many ways, because he was competent until his death. But with my mom, so important to have that intermediary to help out. And the sad part was that my mom went off hospice because she wasn't dying fast enough. Her blood tests were not bad enough, and she wasn't losing enough weight. So in other words, she was being taken care of.
Right.
And she went off. She was off for 6 weeks or so, and then this incident happened. So it was hard but not hard to get her back on. It happened over Memorial Day weekend, which of course, the worst time to do anything is over a holiday weekend. These things always seem to happen at night or on holidays, right? But it was the best thing, and the only thing that would have helped my mom with her goals, with her wishes, and I'm just grateful that we were equipped to insist upon their care and get their care for my mom, and it was, it's the best that could have been. So, yeah.
And that is what it means to be on this side of retirement.
Yep. It's an adventure.
You know?
Not always.
But if you look at it this way, Sue, we're actually fortunate because I thought about this, just how many people have lost their parents well before retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even when they were children.
Right.
Like, we're lucky that we went in the progression of what we hope it would be.
Right.
That we are the next ones to step up.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
You know, and that we always say this is, retirements are our next adventure. Adventures aren't always fun.
No.
But we do learn and we grow from them. And that's
the point of life.
Yep. And that's the point of all of it. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for listening. Now let's pack up this week's episode in the trunk.
Ride shotgun and be a part of our adventure by clicking on the plus sign to subscribe and follow our show. This will help our ratings and, more importantly, inspire us to keep creating fun and engaging content. We would love to hear from you in the comment sections or email us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. Use the fast track lane by sharing episodes with friends, family, and anyone who would like to join us on our road trip through retirement.
Be sure to check the show notes for links and contact information. Retired is chauffeured by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me, too. Buckle up and tune in next week so that you won't miss your chance to join our retired road trip.